Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
We're starting to see a cultural or paradigm shift.
The Me Too movement continues to pour into the American consciousness.
Decreases in heart rate, we see internal hemorrhaging or bleeding in the embryos.
8 years after the spill, scientists study the impacts of oil on fish.
Food was something that we really enjoyed. Everything about it, how it's grown, what it takes to get food to the table.
Carrying on the legacy of a Louisiana legend.
Hi everyone, I'm Andre Morrow. More on those stories in a moment, but first on the state we're in, a look at the week's other headlines.
The topic of criminal justice reform led Governor John Bel Edwards to Washington this week to meet with Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's senior advisor and son-in-law. Edwards also told a discussion group what's expected with Louisiana's new reforms, saying mass incarceration is not just Louisiana's shame, it is America's. We currently imprison more people per capita than any other state, but it's projected the laws passed in June will cut the state's prison population some 10% by the year 2026. Construction is just beginning on a new oyster reef in Calcasieu Lake and should be complete in about 2 weeks. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries says the reef will increase oyster habitat and fisheries production. Some financial help is coming for students heading into Louisiana colleges. The state's community and tech college system is creating a scholarship program for students involved in the Future Farmers Association. Each student in the high school club will get a $500 one-time scholarship, and each FFA state champion will receive a $1,000 scholarship. The holiday spirit is set to roll through Louisiana and a number of other states. The annual Kansas City Southern Holiday Express train will make stops in 20 cities as it travels through Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. The journey begins in Victoria, Texas, and ends December 15th in Kansas City.
Chemical and energy giant Sasol is pulling the plug on a $15 billion project in the Lake Charles area. They say the gas to liquids plant in Westlake is simply no longer economical. The GTL facility would have converted Louisiana's cheap, abundant natural gas into fuels to compete with oil. When the project was originally announced in 2012, oil was nearly $100 a barrel. Today, it's averaging around $55 per barrel. Sasol is nearing the completion of a $12 billion ethane cracking plant. They have made more than $1 million in road improvements in the area, and those improvements include the state's first adaptive traffic signal system along LA Highway 378.
What an adaptive signal is it allows a multiple group of signals to communicate to each other to maximize throughput, to maximize the length of red or the length of yellow or the length of green to allow more people to take advantage of the capacity made available on that corridor. And it's one of the newest innovative things from a traffic technology standpoint, and it's the first time that we've done that here in the state of Louisiana in partnership with a private investor, and it's something that we're going to look to as a tool in other urban areas of the state as we look at building additional capacity on the system that's already built as opposed to just adding new lanes throughout the entire state. So this is a better way to take advantage of what we've already built in the state of Louisiana.
Stunning news about alleged sexual misconduct in the workplace brought down another television news star with Wednesday's firing of NBC's Matt Lauer. On Thursday, the former Today Show host issued a statement saying he is deeply sorry. Now, in September, Lauer interviewed Bill O'Reilly, who was forced out of Fox News over similar allegations, except O'Reilly denies he did anything wrong. Take a listen to this clip.
you were probably the last guy in the world that they wanted to fire, because you were the guy that the ratings and the revenues were built on. You carried that network on your shoulders for a lot of years. So doesn't it seem safe to assume that the people at Fox News were given a piece of information or given some evidence that simply made it impossible for you to stay on at Fox News?
With us now to discuss the who's, the whys, and the what's next are clinical psychologist Dr. Brandon Romano and licensed professional counselor Shannon Smith. Dr. Romano, let me ask you, Time Magazine is reporting a story saying that men are waking up to sexual harassment finally, but they have a lot to learn. Your thoughts on that?
I believe that's true. I mean, we see that in our private practice. I think it's evident at this point that we're starting to see a cultural or paradigm shift. The more that these allegations are brought forward, I think it's becoming more apparent, more obvious to others as to what's going on. It's making the cases more obvious to the public. I think what's also important is that the men that are being accused are acknowledging the abuse. Instead of years ago, they would have tended to have fought it, but they're acknowledging it now. And we also have men that are bringing forth allegations that they were sexually abused as well.
Ms. Smith, what has changed in our landscape that all of this is coming out now, it seems, in a rush, it seems?
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Romano that a lot of it has to do with men having a voice in the matter. In the past, this was viewed as a woman's issue, and now it's seen as a cultural issue, that it's important to everyone. I don't believe that there are more reports now or that it's happening more now, but that people are reporting more often. Yeah, we have 24-hour news cycle. We're all available to news around the world, so we're going to hear things more frequently, and we're more used to talking about sexual harassment at this point than we used to be.
And of course, it's not just men being accused, but we're hearing more of that, and these are men in powerful positions.
They are. And many are men that we like a lot. So we have this, kind of cognitive dissonance, trying to hold the idea that we like the person, but he's done something bad.
Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Russell Simmons, a Hollywood TV mogul, John Besh, Louisiana restaurateur. There's Alabama Senate candidate Roy Moore, who is fighting back. He's accusing liberals of playing dirty politics. Is there dirty politics sometimes at play here that could be happening?
I think what's important to realize is that, what's happening is when we have this paradigm shift in these accusations, we have to be very cautious and very careful of these allegations. Certainly within the political realm, we're seeing it in our own state at this point. We've seen 2 incidents in Louisiana of an official in the governor's administration as well as an official in public safety and corrections that have both had allegations against them. And so the point is, I think that we have to be very mindful if there's any alternative or ulterior motives for these allegations being brought against them, while also taking consideration that there may be a factual basis to it.
Sure. What is next? I mean, what happens next? What should happen next?
Well, I think, like Dr. Romano said earlier, I think it's important that men are taking responsibility, that businesses, that companies are taking swift action. With seeing consequences for action, I believe that we'll see more people who are reporting in timely manner, and maybe people that will change their behavior.
These are things that in your practices you've seen over the years many times. They just haven't been publicized.
Yes, there was a time for 10 years that I worked in administration for a state agency, and we handled cases like this. Some cases resulted in termination. Some cases resulted in the employees simply being sent on for further training, sensitivity training, empathy training, and allowed to return back to the workplace setting.
Well, it seems like it's a new day for this as we move forward.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you so much for talking about this with us. We appreciate it. It's a hot topic right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Washington Post has removed writer and former A Prairie Home Companion host Garrison Keillor from his column. This comes a day after Minnesota Public Radio fired Keillor for allegations of inappropriate behavior. It has been almost 8 years since the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and scientists at LSU are still learning new things about the oil's effect on the environment. LPB's Clélie Spires is here with more on this. Clélie.
Thanks, Andre. That's right. A PhD candidate, Charlie Brown, showed me around the lab of Fernando Galvez, where they observe and measure how oil affects fish embryos and what that might mean for following generations. Take a look. And these are the children of fish that were exposed to oil.
Correct.
Either on their maternal or paternal side.
Correct.
At first glance, these fish might appear normal, but if you look closely, you'll notice deformities in their faces and along their spines. Those are the transgenerational effects of oil exposure. These fish are part of a study by LSU researcher Charlie Brown and his fellow grad students.
We use as a model organism the Gulf killifish. And what we do is we expose the Gulf killifish, sometimes as adults, sometimes as embryos, to crude oil and measure the effects. This is where it all starts. These are the guys that will get exposed to crude oil, and then we monitor the effects of the crude oil on how these embryos develop.
Fish are especially susceptible to oil at this embryonic stage.
A lot of organization within their developing bodies is occurring. You have the heart developing, you have the brain developing, you have fins developing, you have internal organs developing.
Oil throws off that process. They observe it happen under a microscope.
That's his two eyes there, and that little red dot in the very center, that's his heart. What we see when we expose the embryos to crude oil are decreases in heart rate. We see internal hemorrhaging or bleeding in the embryos. We see reduced hatch success, longer time to hatch, and in certain higher concentrations, instances of death in these embryos.
And those effects stay with the fish for the rest of their lives.
You can imagine that if these fish have craniofacial abnormalities, cardiovascular abnormalities, or like even a smaller tail at hatch, that puts them at a disadvantage later in life. And that's one thing that we seek to better understand in our lab.
What is a craniofacial abnormality?
So a craniofacial abnormality is just, say, an abnormal jaw development, an abnormal shape to the jaw. And that can matter a lot to a fish because this fish may now have a reduced ability to capture prey.
So having a craniofacial abnormality might mean that you can't eat as well, or having a tail that's not formed properly, you can't get away from predators.
Exactly. And so the name of the game with these fish is to grow as fast as you can and not get eaten. And you're essentially as good as dead if you can't do either.
And it's not just the fish that were exposed to oil that are at risk. There's something even more insidious going on, Brown says.
These fish here, their parents were exposed, okay? So one thing that we found is that if you expose the parents to oil, then the offspring are affected. Even if the offspring, even if their children are reared in clean water, we see that they have negative effects growing up.
So does it encode into their DNA somehow?
It goes into epigenetics, and that's something that's a very new and growing scientific area right now.
Epigenetics is the study of biological mechanisms that turn genes on and off. These fish don't have changes in their DNA. They're experiencing changes in how their DNA gets copied due to exposure to oil, and that gets carried down through generations.
What our data does suggest is that yes, you expose mom and dad, the children are now changed, they're altered. We actually see that the children are more sensitive to oil.
This is a lab study, which started after observations made during the BP oil spill in 2010. Brown says what happens in the lab doesn't always reflect what happens in the field.
You got to keep in mind that the environment is a very dynamic place, and the lab is not. So the lab allows us to make more precise evaluations versus in the wild, it's a little bit more complicated.
But this study can teach us about what could happen.
These salt marshes are used as nurseries by the Gulf killifish. So this fish will spend its entire life in a salt marsh. It breeds in these salt marshes, it lays its eggs in these salt marshes, it rears its young in these salt marshes. We have the potential for oil exposure to affect all these different life stages. You also have all these other important fish that use these salt marshes as well, so speckled sea trout, redfish.
But the biggest takeaway from his work, Brown says, is what we can learn about ourselves.
We both share basics in reproductive physiology as well as developmental biology and physiology as well. Better understanding the effects of oil toxicology from looking at the Gulf killifish may better help us understand the effects on humans of oil toxicity.
Other students in the lab have done studies on whether the grandchildren of these fish are going to be affected. Andre?
These have been concerns that we have all had since the oil spill, and I see it's bearing out now. Kelly, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Republicans cleared a big hurdle this week in the tax overhaul plan when the Senate Budget Committee approved the bill, but there are more hurdles to come. And what does the plan really have in store for us? We go to economist Scott Drinkard for the answer on that. What's your assessment of where things stand now, Scott?
Well, there's some good and some bad, but what I will say is that this is either good news or bad news, depending on how you look at it. The current federal tax system has such high rates and such poorly constructed tax bases that there's so much we can do to improve it. And the Senate plan, when you take everything into account, does improve our standing in terms of rate competitiveness internationally, and then also growth potential from tax reform.
What about for people in Louisiana?
Well, in Louisiana, we've run the numbers, and 12,611 new jobs would be created as a result of this plan just in the state of Louisiana alone, and over 900,000 jobs countrywide. The average wages of a middle-class Louisianian would be $1,857 higher for a middle-class family.
You have worked tax reform for Louisiana, so you know our state very well. You know the problems, the pros and cons, the pork issues also. Where do we stand right now?
Well, Louisiana, in the state tax system, has a lot of improvement that could be made. I think one of the things we got to watch out for is if federal reforms go through, a lot of states, and Louisiana included, base their tax systems and their tax definitions of income on the federal definitions. And so as those change as a component of federal reform, we're going to be in a case where actually Louisiana will probably end up with some additional revenue, which would be a welcome change in the state, some additional revenue and an opportunity to rekindle the state tax reform conversation in Louisiana.
Okay, let me ask you this. There's been an outcry from college athletic programs about some of their season ticketing and some of the monies they get. You buy a ticket on the 40-yard line, you pay a surcharge of X amount of dollars. LSU has said they will lose millions of dollars with this tax overhaul. Your thoughts on that?
Well, you got to look at this entire thing in its whole package, and so what we find overall is that you'd see economic growth in around 3% above the baseline, which again is 3% sounds like a small number, but when you talk about it in terms of total jobs created, you're looking at almost 1 million additional American jobs, 12,000 of which would be in the state of Louisiana alone.
Hey, Scott, thank you so much for your input. We appreciate it. We'll keep watching, and we thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
And the latest from Washington, Senator Mitch McConnell is now saying they have the votes and could begin voting this evening. Long before there was a Bobby Flay or Emerald Lagasse, there was Justin Wilson. Wilson was a Cajun cook and humorist. His granddaughter is carrying on his tradition of cooking and storytelling in North Louisiana. She also has a unique tie to agriculture, as Tammy Arender reports.
It's just like a little pillow of air, just individually made for you.
This is Clélie Stone's catfish dumplings, a delectable southern dish that has people driving from all over to Richland Parish to get a taste. If it's not the dumplings, then it's her seafood crepes, her perfectly cooked and locally sourced aged Angus ribeye. The Dillards of Start never miss a First Friday supper at Stonehouse Eats.
It has become almost a date night tradition for us. Everything we've had in the past has been extremely enjoyable.
Clélie and husband Henry run this little restaurant in Rayville. Clélie doesn't have a culinary degree, but her family pedigree says she came out of the womb knowing how to cook. She grew up on Panola Plantation in East Carroll Parish.
My mother's family is from Lake Providence, and my uncle began to produce hot sauce, Panola hot sauce, which was my grandmother's recipe. But we were a big food family, and food was something that we really enjoyed. Everything about it, how it's grown, what it takes to get food to the table. My great-grandfather was Harry D. Wilson, Commissioner of Agriculture for like 33, 34 years. And so deeply entrenched in agriculture, which is all about food.
And there's another famous Wilson on her family tree.
How y'all are? I'm glad for you to see me, I guarantee.
Clélie is the granddaughter of Justin Wilson, a famous chef and Cajun humorist who was a mainstay on public broadcasting in the 60s and 70s.
You know, down in southwest Louisiana, we got a town named Guidon.
He also made several comedy albums back when there was such a thing as vinyl. Either way, he served up good eats with a side of laughter.
People ask me if I learned how to cook from my grandfather. I say no. I really learned how to eat.
Clélie also inherited Wilson's gene of good storytelling, who knew her audience would be a congregation of United Methodist churchgoers.
Lord, open our hearts and minds by the power of your Holy Spirit.
Inside the United Methodist Church in Tallulah, Clélie and her husband Henry share preaching duties. Clélie and Henry also pastor the United Methodist Church in Delhi.
Amen. Amen.
Everybody's hungry. Everybody is hungry. Spiritual hunger, we're more in tune with physical hunger, but everybody's hungry.
And Clélie knows how to satisfy both, by plate or by pulpit.
In the holy name of Jesus, we love you this morning. Amen.
I'm Tammy Arender for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture.
Tammy, thank you very much for that report. All across South Louisiana, from Lockport in the east to Rockefeller Refuge in the west, the alligator is recognized as pure Louisiana, and there's good reason. Enjoy this video essay from Rex Q. Fortenberry. And of course, in Louisiana, Papa Noel's sleigh is guided by French-speaking gators in the Cajun Night Before Christmas. That is our show for this week, everybody. Remember, you can watch LPB on demand on your phone or tablet with our LPB Anywhere app. The download is free from your app store. You can catch LPB news and public affairs shows as well as other Louisiana programs that you've come to enjoy over the years. And please like us on Facebook as well. For everyone at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Morrow. Thanks for watching. Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter and visit lpb.org where you can view more stories and leave us a comment. This program is available on DVD. Support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum. Located in Jennings City Hall, the museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is a historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. Additional support provided by the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.